Pizza and Grill. Very happy to have on our bench racing hotline from NASCAR.com. Mark Aumann joins us. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how's it going, Steve and Charlie? Happy 2012.
Same to you, Mark.
2012. Isn't it wonderful? We haven't
Holy
talked to you
cow.
all year, have we?
No, it's the first time this year.
Wow. Hey, we got a lot of catching. Okay, let's talk.
I got to talk to the guy that schedules this stuff, Mark.
The most important thing we got to get out of the way first is what we talked about before we went on the air, you and I, was that Miguel Cabrera has been okay to be in the starting lineup for opening day for the Tigers. So we'll get that out of the way.
Super good news. Glad to hear it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I want
we haven't talked since we got Prince Fielder, so oh well.
Well, I know. So it's life is good, at least right now
For Tiger fans.
Yep. Haven't lost a game yet. They're undefeated.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to be a pitcher in the American League Central Division, but other than that, no.
Yeah, that wouldn't be an enviable place to be. So anyhow, all right. Well, let's get this whole racing thing. We better talk about this, or else we won't pay the bills. I want to jump back, seeing as we haven't talked to you all year. I want to jump back on something that you wrote 2 weeks ago, and we've talked a little bit about to some other people, but I want to get your take on it. Is the whole introduction of the Dodge Charger and the beautiful new car that it is, all ready to go for NASCAR for 2013, and nary a driver to be had.
If you build it, they will come. Apparently, in this instance,
Who will come?
Metaphor.
Who will come?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who is out there at this point? And I think that was what made us scratch our heads after Roger Penske made the announcement that he was going to Ford for 2013. Obviously, there's a great car out there. Dodge has shown that they want to support some sort of a team for that, and it's just a matter of who's got a contract that's coming up that may be available to do that. Or we've seen back when they got back in with Ray Evernham, they basically funded that team for a few years. The problem is the economy is a little different than it was, say, in 2002, 2003. So there's the issue is you've got this car, and right now we're still wondering where it's coming. You know, who's going to be in it when we come back around to Daytona.
And the second portion of that question, I guess, is who would build engines for it. And the thing that I was looking at this week was that Penske hasn't ruled out the fact that he could continue to build Dodge engines for other people, which I would have to believe would not necessarily, I guess, be a conflict of interest, but maybe more so a conflict of stupidity or something. I don't know.
Well,
it just doesn't make sense.
There's yet another head scratching thing, and I don't have enough hair up there to do that too much. But yeah, you just sort of sit there and wonder, okay, if you thought that the Dodge engines were that important to keep in-house, so why wouldn't you keep the Dodge chassis in-house? And if you've decided that Ford is interesting enough to go to, and you're picking up the Roush Fenway engines that Doug Yates puts together, which is a very, very great program, then why are you keeping your engine shop? Yeah, that is one of those kind of, it'll sort itself out, but right now it's really hard to see far enough into the future to have that make any sense. Obviously, the team that's out there that their contract expires at the end of the season, they've been Dodge teams for years, would be Richard Petty Motorsports. At the same point, every indication that we get out of there is that they're very happy with Ford and they'd like to stay there. The question is Ford happy with Richard Petty? Right. And we assume that they are, but that's they're the one that has the contract available at this point.
Well, the other speculation that we had talked about last week was the possibility, but maybe not probability, of that Ganassi taking on that burden almost of Dodge and being the team that would spearhead Dodge back to prominence. But I don't see how they would be able to do that unless they were going to divvy their program with Earnhardt. That's
exactly.
kind of a problem.
And there's the whole issue. There's another head scratcher. Yes, Ganassi was running Dodges previously, but once they merged and all these crazy mergers have taken place, how does DEI, or the former DEI shop, who has been steadfastly Chevrolet ever since Dale switched from Fords way back in the early '80s. How do you separate that? And is that a situation where we see a breakup of a merger where one part of it goes one way and say Ganassi takes his part and goes off to Dodge? That's out there too. But again, it's not clear cut. There's no real easy path that puts you 2 and 2 equals 4 in this instance, I guess.
Well, I'm going to let Charlie ask you a question that he asked me before we went on the air, which we had talked about the Richard. Because Mark Aumann is the perfect guy to ask this question to.
I pose this one to you, Mark.
Sure.
Who would you rather be? Would you rather be Richard Petty with 7 championships as a driver and not much success after he hung up the driver's helmet as a team owner? I mean, I think they may have won 2 races.
One of those being John Andretti at Martinsville, and I forgot where the other one was.
Yeah, I think the other one might have been. I don't want to guess. Okay, would you rather be Richard Petty or would you rather be Richard Childress, who had very little success as a driver, but has had 7 championships as an owner and is still in the game as a contender for more championships? Which would you rather be?
Yeah, that's a fascinating discussion because personally, yes. Would you rather have the satisfaction of being the guy who is doing it as a first-person situation, or would you rather be sitting on the pit box and letting somebody else, and you're sort of chess master at that point, moving the pieces around that work? Boy, dealing with Dale Earnhardt on a day-to-day basis. Of course, Richard had to deal with Lee Petty on a day-to-day basis, so I guess it's a couple of headstrong individuals there.
Right.
I don't know. I think we'll have to sit and think about that and get back to you the next time on the show. I'm not sure I can answer that right off the top of my head.
Well, think that one over. I'm going to put a post up on the Bench Racing with Steve and Charlie blog tomorrow, and you can maybe comment on it for me.
Yeah, I think just from the fun that would be, driving the cars that Petty drove all those years. I think it'd be fun from a retro racing standpoint to be Petty.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And the great thing is I love the thought of these guys racing 2-3 nights a week and just kind of loading that baby up on the trailer, or maybe a few years later on the back of the wedge type hauler, and going from one place to another, running 3 times during the week. What a great time that NASCAR would have been back there to watch.
Yeah, and so many dirt tracks and so many different tracks. It was really a fascinating time when it was sort of still trying to gain its footing as a major sport.
Well, and teams were still able to gain an advantage then too with the car. They could do things if they had an innovative, I don't know, they called them crew chiefs back then. Innovative mechanic. They could massage some things and cheat and. To me, it was more interesting.
Yeah, and the most amazing thing, talking to some of those guys, they only had the one car. If you wrecked the car, they had the one from last year that was still sitting in the shop that you might tow out.
Yeah.
But you needed to use that until you could repair the one car. Ned Jarrett told the story about having to buy a car on Friday with a check that might have bounced had he not won 2 races over the weekend to be able to cover it Monday morning when he ran back to the bank in Hickory.
Well, that was a great thing about the introduction of the car of tomorrow, was the fact that these guys have now, again, been able to run one car at every racetrack. Oh, wait, no, that didn't work out, did it? That didn't work out.
They still build a zillion of them, but you're right. The neat thing is that you can run a car at places you would never assume that they would run again. Somewhere like Phoenix and then run it again at somewhere like Michigan. And you think, well, those 2 cars don't seem similar, but I guess something about the way the chassis is built, you can actually put the setup on it and change it enough. But yes, that has changed, particularly for the smaller teams. I think it probably gives them a little bit more of a chance to get out there. They don't have to have a car for every single racetrack.
We're talking with Mark Aumann from NASCAR.com, and I guess that leads into the whole C-pillar gate a little bit that I want to talk to you about as well and get your take on that. My feeling is that if you hadn't hit the racetrack yet, you go through inspection, NASCAR tells you to fix it, then you go back through inspection until you get it right, and you go out on the racetrack, no harm, no foul. That's not the way NASCAR feels. And we talked to Patrick Donahue, car chief for Dave Blaney, And, his take was that, NASCAR tells them when you unload that car, we assume that you have every intention of racing it. So, therefore, if it's not legal, it's not legal. I guess I can see that a little bit. Where does Mark Aumann stand on that particular issue?
I want Mr. Middlebrook to represent me in front of the IRS this year.
Good job. Good idea.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've stood there at the tech line and I've seen that where the guys have had something missing on the template that they've pushed out a line, beat on it a little bit, put a little Bondo on it, and it goes back through and it fits the claw. I haven't seen it as much, say, in the last couple of years, but there for a stretch, you'd see somebody hammering out a piece of bodywork or something just to make it fit the template. Now, in this instance, the fact that the C-posts were that recognizable to somebody sitting in the tech garage that they looked that unusual, they wouldn't even put the claw on it, sort of amazes me, because I would have at least done that just to have, a physical evidence, I guess.
Something to back you up.
And that's maybe what Mr. Middlebrook was looking at that point, wondering why that was the case. Obviously, Rick Hendrick and Chad Knaus talked about they had information showing that car had passed inspection several times before, or at least that's what we were being told. We certainly don't know exactly what was discussed in any of the appeals, other than just secondhand information. But at the same point, if you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, we're inspecting these cars and this is the hard and fast rule on it now. You want to sort of back yourself up in case it comes up to a he said, she said situation. And in that case, I guess NASCAR thought their information was good enough to win the case, and obviously it was good enough to get through the appeal. But when it went to Middlebrook, then he turned that over. The odd thing to me about that whole instance, though, is if you rescind the points, okay, understood. That car never made it on the track. If you rescind the suspensions, okay, whatever. But why then leave a $100,000 fine? What in that instance are you trying to prove with that?
Oh, what you're missing? Shipping and handling is extra. Hey, wait just a second. We'll give you 2 of those widgets, but shipping and handling for the second one is extra.
That's right. That's loading and doxy, apparently, at that point.
There you go. That's exactly what it is. What is Mark Aumann working on that we will see on NASCAR.com coming up in the near future?
Wow. Retro Racing this week is actually looking back at the 2004 race at Martinsville that was Rusty Wallace's last Cup win. It was also the race in which Jeff Gordon had the most terrible luck this year so far. That was the race in which the piece of concrete came up and clobbered the front valance and wrecked his day.
I remember that race.
Yep.
Fondly.
Yeah.
So does Steve.
I will be at Martinsville this weekend to avoid as many Martinsville hot dogs as possible.
Wow, that's not one of your favorites, huh?
No, they're good. I just what happens is when you eat one, you realize that maybe you should have a second and then a third, and after a while you look up and go, oh my gosh, how many of those have I eaten? So I have to pace myself with the Martinsville hot dog.
I'll have that same issue a week from Thursday, Mark, when I'm at the opener for the Tigers, and those ballpark Franks are tempting me.
Oh yes.
And I will have that same issue the day before when the Tigers play the Toledo Mud Hens here at Fifth Third Field.
There you go.
So we all have our issues.
That's right.
Yeah, we all have our bears to cross.
Yes, we do. As always, Mark, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you again soon, I promise.
Oh, it's great to talk to you guys. Have a great April.
Thanks, Mark. Have a great time down at Martinsville.
Thanks. Mark
Aumann, Retro Racing at NASCAR.com. One of the best NASCAR racing columns you're going to read anywhere, especially if you're kind of a history buff, as Steve and I both are.